Welcome back everyone to Coach to You. I'm your host, Coach Regina, and today I'm back with another video. Today's topic we're going to discuss, is your nervous system ready for your dreams? Yes guys, this is going to be a very interesting topic today, you guys, and I am going to go ahead and jump right in. I want you to do me a favor. I'm going to give my disclaimer, but I do want you to stay to the end of this video. If you all haven't already done so, like and subscribe to the channel, you guys. I got some great content, and I know that people need to hear and understand this. So guys, if you leave your thumbs up, people will get the YouTube algorithm and we can be able to refer them to my video. Alright, so before I get started, although I'm a student of psychology, I'm not a licensed health professional. All content and information on this channel stems from my own personal experience and extensive research, and is for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be considered professional medical advice. If you feel you have a mental health condition, seek the guidance of a medical professional. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and jump in. Is your nervous system ready for your dreams? Now, I'm going to be referring to my notes here on the video, as I do always, because I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys accurate and definitive information that I have taken time to research, okay? Alright, so we'll touch on a few points, but before I do, I want to give my own story, okay? So essentially, what really resonated with this particular topic is the awareness of where I am today versus where I was 3 years ago. And ultimately, I thought something was wrong with my particular mindset and how I navigate creating wealth and stability for my family. What I found out was that my goals essentially were unfolding over this 3 year span, not because I was doing something wrong, but ultimately I didn't have the confidence or consistency or the nervous system to be able to hold the desired state that I wanted. I blame my willpower. I blame my schedule. I blame my family. I blame my environment. I blame everything I can think of. But then I realized it wasn't a mindset problem. It wasn't my environment per se. It was ultimately my nervous system. So that's what brought me to this topic. It couldn't hold the weight of my goals. I had these big, massive goals. If I show you my 5 year goal plan, guys, I mean, you would think that it's like Bill Gates or somebody that literally created this goal, this financial stability and etc. that I had envisioned for my family. But ultimately, this is the type of mindset that I have. But what I didn't realize is that my nervous system didn't have the physical capacity to hold what I was trying to build. So I went down this trajectory of experiences that ultimately built a sense of resiliency, mental capacity, and a sense of deservedness of my desires, okay? What I want you to understand is this, that our nervous system is the ultimate gatekeeper of our goal setting, okay? The chronic stress that I grew up in of poverty, it literally alters the neurological function of the brain, shifting the brain from reflective long-term planning that CEOs and entrepreneurs do, right, to what's called reactive survival mode. So my nervous system literally lived in a sense of fight or flight, and I didn't know this, guys. Now we're talking about having an eatery where I would interact with thousands of people on a week span, but I didn't know that I literally lived in a state of survival because I was smiling all the time. Okay? This is going to, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be really deep. This topic is going to be very, very intricate for you to help understand where you are now versus where you desire to be. Okay? So what you have to understand when it comes to creating wealth and stability, which is one of my goals, wealth fosters environments of safety, right? Safety that allows the nervous system to allocate cognitive bandwidth to growth and strategic goal setting. Now you hear me talk a lot about energy and vibration on my podcast, right? So essentially, you don't hear people discuss this, but we're ultimately energetic beings, right? Well, your body needs to conserve energy in order to keep you alive. So what it does is it down regulates, right, certain functions in order to keep this survival state at an all-time low, okay? So where people may be geniuses or brilliant in their ability to do certain things, if their body doesn't have the energetic resources that have been conserved to literally flow in those different areas of their life, then they don't pursue it. It's not that people are not smart or they don't have the capacity to do certain things. Certain upbringing, certain environments, certain, life choices ultimately have caused us, especially those that are inherited, have caused us to inherit a nervous system that is bent on survival versus thriving. Okay? All right. Moving on. So the next point is understanding what is known as a window of tolerance. So we'll talk about what's called an energetic baseline or a nervous system set point versus what's called a window of tolerance. This is one of the key things that I ultimately discovered in my own life. Okay? So basically I mentioned the two: window of tolerance and nervous system set point. The first is the time it took for my nervous system or your nervous system to slowly expand its capacity for wealth. Your situation may be for a healthy relationship. Your capacity may be for a new job or a better environment or whatever the case may be. It took 3 years because my brain and body were engaged in a deep physical restructuring process. Okay? Doubt, fear, and uncertainty are not signs that you or I are failing during this particular expanding period, right? What they are actually is predictable biological symptoms of our nervous system rewiring itself. As you go through evolution, you heard me talk about this on my podcast a lot. We're essentially creatures of evolution. I talk about if you're not evolving, you're dying, right? So basically, we go through experiences in life, whether it's a breakup, a job loss, death in the family, a move, your difficulties with your children, or other different external situations, right? How we recover, how we adapt to those situations ultimately determine our capacity for tolerance and our nervous system's ability to be able to stretch us further. The goal is to keep you alive. It's not about you thriving. It's not about you having a successful business or any of that. This is something I didn't know. I felt like if you went to college and you have these books that you've written and you've got all these different friendships and relationships and these businesses, that you're ultimately supposed to be built for this. No, sweetheart. The caveat is being able to survive it and stretch your window of tolerance for discomfort. That is a simple scientific fact, okay? When you see people commit suicide, and if you know someone that has been dealing with suicidal thoughts, make sure you seek the guidance of a healthcare professional. But ultimately, when people commit suicide, guys, what they have reached is what's called a threshold, their window of tolerance for stress, then their cortisol level, and not being able to navigate it effectively. Having tools such as, for mindfulness, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, meditation, and journaling and different things like that, they play a major role when you're trying to heal yourself, right? But real world experiences externally are ultimately determine the feedback in levels of growth and resiliency, right? But if you don't get that feedback and you're constantly being put on the forefront of different experiences, you will not be able to know how you are growing, evolving, or thriving. Okay? The next one was the baseline, or the nervous system set point that I mentioned earlier. This is our body's familiar everyday baseline. It is the specific level of stress, safety, or capacity that we can handle, whether it be chaos, friction, or whatever the case may be. Whatever your brain considers normal based on past conditioning, if we grew up in poverty, if we grew up in stressful environments, then your set point might be calibrated to high alertness, okay? This is very important because that's how I grew up, right? Constantly looking, for the next threat or what's going to happen next, trying to figure out my life. And if in that regard, all I had was religion. Let me be honest. I had religion and my ability to bounce back from adversity very well. But what I didn't have, you guys, is the awareness of my baseline, okay? Based off of how I grew up and what my conditioning is. So here's the exact science behind this, okay? If you're staying with me to the end of the video, guys, again, don't forget to like and subscribe, okay? We're going to continue on. Your nervous system's goal setting is essentially comprised of several parts. Let's say 5, okay? I'm going to give you the key ones. The prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the reticular activating system, the basal ganglia, and the autonomic nervous system. Now, when it comes to goal setting, okay, you need your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex, and your reticular activating system on the same accord. This is very key, okay? Because essentially, when they're doing opposites, you begin to experience what's called cognitive distortion. And that is you're basically doing one thing, but your system is saying another. This is hard. You can't reach your goals that way. And this is why a lot of people become frustrated, especially those who have grown up in impoverished environments. When you don't have the awareness of the ability for your particular system and how it operates, this is what leads people to hurting others, robbing, stealing, check fraud, scams, and other different things like that to try to survive because they haven't tapped in to their thriving network and the ability for their brain to kick on out of fight or flight state. Okay? Now, I know this video may be a little deep and a little heavy, you guys, so watch it a couple of times, okay, just to be able to get what I'm understanding. Is your nervous system ready for your dreams? Okay? Everyone have dreams. Everyone has the ability to evolve in some way, but you have to be able to understand what makes you click, okay? And if you don't have that awareness, your brain is prioritizing one thing and one thing only, and that is survival. Moving from survival to thriving means you have to be able to follow me here, okay? So, first of all, getting your amygdala to understand that you are safe, okay? If you're constantly reacting to everyday stressors and things in your environment, you're constantly fighting, arguing, and trying to prove your sense of safety, your amygdala is always going to prioritize safety over thriving because that's the signal that you're giving it, okay? The amygdala flags unknown territory as a threat. Doubt, fear, and uncertainty that we tend to feel is essentially our amygdala pumping out stress chemicals to force us back into our comfort zone. Working a 9 to 5, hanging out with friends that you know are living a different life than what you desire, all of those are considered safety, okay? You don't return back to the same environment because you want to go there. It's your system is drawing you back to what is familiar to conserve energy. Okay? The next one is recognizing that your neural pathways, they take time to upgrade, okay? So basically what may seem like a long period of you writing a book or you are building your entrepreneur or your legacy for your children, whatever the case may be, your dreams are, you have to think about it from the perspective of how your old habits work. They tend to outlast new goals. Every year somebody tells you that they're setting a new goal for something. They're done with it by day 21. Not because something's wrong with them. It is ultimately the neural pathway that is operating that is basically telling you that you need to come back down the trail that is familiar. Okay? You cannot drive a high-speed vehicle down a walking trail. It's laws that are governing our energetic momentum and how we thrive, okay? Every time we push through doubt, we lay new foundations. We lay tiny bits of myelin, which is essentially the nerves that signal to our brain on how fast we can travel in terms of our thought processes, right? When you continue an action repetitively over a longer span, you build more myelin in those particular pathways and they become stronger. You become more resilient and you're now signaling to your brain, I can do this. I can get through this. I didn't stop at book 1 because I got bad feedback. I didn't stop at book 2 because it was hard. And I damn sure didn't stop at book 3 because it was 500 pages long. I continue to persist in my desire to be a writer and to create content because I realize that I have value. Recognizing that you have value is the signal that you send to your brain that I'm going to persist in this regardless of the setbacks. Ultimately, what happens in that regard is your brain will begin to let up and it will begin to look for new opportunities and more book titles that you can publish. You see how that works? People give up on day 21 because they don't have the awareness that it takes persistency in a particular goal in order to create new neural pathways for your brain to pick it up as an actuality versus just a short-term goal. Okay, the next one is recognizing that the laws, there's no respect of persons. This is actually a scripture, you guys. If you have a desire, the universe doesn't have favoritism, okay? Your breakthrough moment, realizing that you are capable and that you too can have wealth, a new job, a new lifestyle, and also when I say new job, exchanging time for money, guys, that's a choice, okay? You have the ability to create any life you desire. You simply have to be willing to do the work that it takes. And if it takes you 3 years, it takes you 5 years. Recognize that if you continue to persist in it, it will harden into facts, okay? So, back to favoritism. The universe doesn't have favoritism, okay? It operates on universal laws. We'll talk about a little bit about that. But I'm not going to keep you long on the video because I want to make sure that you get those points that was discussed earlier, okay? We talked about my 3-year journey. We talked about our nervous system acting as a gatekeeper for our goal setting. We talked about the 5 parts to our nervous system that play a major role that must be regulated and aligned. Those other 3 that I mentioned, which was the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and the reticular activated system, that must be on one accord so that you can persist towards your goals with absolute certainty and conviction and inner knowing that you too will reach your destination. Okay? Moving on to the next point. So basically, once you train your nervous system to recognize that it can hold success and that you will survive it, right? You will stop viewing fear as a permanent identity and start viewing it as a temporary physical sensation that is happening on all levels of your system. Persevering towards that fear, that doubt, the inner threat that you may feel on the inside signals to your system that you can get through anything, okay? The reason why it took me 3 years, it wasn't essentially a waste of time. For you, it may take you 2 years. It may take you 5, whatever the case may be. It is the system of your biological construction period that is required for your nervous system to build a system strong enough to hold the reality that you are stepping into today. I want you to know, guys, that you have the willpower, but that runs out, okay? You understand that your system prioritizes safety over your goals. Persisting in your desire will ultimately cause you to recognize, your system to recognize that danger is not an issue here. It's me choosing and persisting in that choice. Lastly, doubt is not a physical sensation. Doubt is just a physical sensation. It's not a fact. That is very powerful. When it arises and you feel that sense of uncertainty, reflect back to this video, you guys, and say, you know what, Coach Regina mentioned that just because I feel this doubt, it's just a physical sensation. It is not an absolute fact. I will accomplish every goal that I set out to. When you feel fear and uncertainty, that is just your body releasing adrenaline and cortisol to make you slow down. For 3 years, my body was ultimately testing me to see if the direction that I was headed in is safe. I am capable of holding wealth. I set a financial plan to be able to accomplish my goals, and I was able to handle that sense of feeling like I wanted to die inside. Yes, guys, I faced that as well. The last turning aspect was the turning point. The turning point happened when I realized that the universal laws, they didn't just apply to the wealthy, right? To the brilliant. They also apply to me too, and they apply to you. I realized that successful people are not genetically superior than others. They were just trained by their bodies to handle the pressure. Every time they experienced a failure, they kept going. Every time they were told a no, they went and opened another door until they heard yes. Grinding through the friction until finally they believed that the truth was in their bones, not just in their head. Going from this point of realization is activating something very powerful in your body, in your system, and in your mind. I dropped out of high school, guys, in the 9th grade. I was told that I wasn't going to do anything but be a prostitute on the street like my mom, because those words resonated with who I was in that environment. I followed many of those pursuits because I didn't have the awareness that their word was not the ultimate choice in my life and my decisions. I went back and got my high school diploma. I didn't choose a GED because I realized that that wouldn't be sufficient for me. I went back and got my high school diploma, you guys, and I walked across that stage. I went and got my associate's degree, and afterwards I completed my degree in psychology. I chose to become the person that I knew that I was destined to, and I persevered beyond my inherited nervous system capacity. And I still am. Every single day that I awake, I realize that I can accomplish anything that I set my mind to. I just have to give my nervous system the assurance that we'll get through this and we will survive, and you will too. If you stay with me to the end of this video, you guys, again, like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button for notifications, you guys, and stay tuned, because guess what? There's going to be a part 2 of this video on, is your nervous system safe for your dreams? That's it. You guys, thank you guys for watching. My name was Coach Regina. Take care.